Thank you, Julio. And my presentation will be a brief talk about the two asymmetries in emergent economies, that is productive asymmetry and financial asymmetry in what I am calling structuralist approach, Latin American structuralist approach of these both asymmetries, please. Actually, we have two asymmetries according to the Latin American structuralist approach. The old CEPAL, as Orero showed in his presentation, is very related to the productive asymmetry. That is the asymmetry in the productive structure between center and periphery, more or less diversified, which leads to international trade and equal appropriation of productive gains between the center and the periphery. This is very related to the deterioration of the terms of the trade that was first showed by Raul Prebisch in 1949. But also there is the financial asymmetry that is related to the asymmetrical international financial integration of peripheral emergent economy, subject to the instabilities of the international liquidity cycle, that is the boom and bust cycles of capital flows determined mainly by the external factor. There is a lot of studies that show that external factors are more important than domestic factors to the determination of the capital inflows to emergent economies. So I will try to show that these two asymmetries, productive asymmetry and financial asymmetry, are not only interconnected, but they are the two sides of the same coin. Please, Julio. Well, peripheral emergent economies have different degrees of financial subordination. I'm working with this concept of financial subordination, which depends on the form of international financial integration and also the type of the productive structure of each economy, greater or lesser diversification of the productive structure. In particular, commodity export economies, such as Latin American ones, have an economy that is not very diversified and complex, with low incorporation of technical progress. And they used to have strong dependence on capital, foreign capital, and also a very volatile current account balance that is very dependent on the commodity cycle, as I will show in the sequence. In turn, emergent East Asia economies are diversified exporters of manufacturing products with high added value, which allows them to have a strong position in their balance of payments, current account surplus, less dependence on capital inflows, and finally, a strong accumulation of foreign exchange reserves. So I will show that this is a very different way of the integration in the international economy, both in terms of trade and also in terms of financial issues. Please. Well, let me introduce briefly this concept of financial subordination. It's not very precise concept that is related to one of the characteristics of financial globalization process is the increase of capital flows between countries and of international and domestic investors involved in local and offshore markets. It's stimulated mainly by the financial liberalization process that began in post-Bretton Woods period since the 70s. In this context, international financial integration has shaped the phenomenon of financialization of peripheral emergent economy, which has one of its main features, the phenomenon called, there are different concepts, similar concepts indeed. Subordinate financialization, subordinate financial integration, or simply financial subordination. I will work with this more simple concept of financial subordination. Such concepts are related to the subordinated and dependent way in which peripheral emergent economies are integrated internationally, given the pro-cyclical and stable nature of capital flows, subject to boom and bust cycles that are strongly determined by exogenous factors, such as the Federal Reserve monetary policy, which generates macroeconomic instability in the periphery and reduces its policy space. Next, please. Some consequence of the financial, there are a lot of consequences, indeed, of the financial subordination. I will just point out some of them. The first is that due to the high degree of financial integration, dependence on foreign capital, the periphery promotes further increase in interest rates to compensate lower liquidity premium of their currencies. They also have much volatile exchange rates compared to advanced economies. This is what the empirical works show us. And also they accumulate foreign reserves as a cushion of safety related to the need to protection to face high volatility of capital flows and consequent abrupt movements in the exchange rate. However, the accumulation of reserves has high social costs, as these reserves receive low remuneration compared to the high interest paid on domestic instruments. It was stressed by Danny Rodrik in a paper of 2006. And finally, emergent economies borrow in hard currency, mainly dollar, euro, and consequently take the exchange rate risk to attract international investors, since they are considered a place of uncertainty and high volatility. Next, please. And here we can see the difference between, this is just the policy rate, interest rates defined by the central bank, and the red lines are of emergent economies, and the black one is of advanced economies. It's just to have a general picture that we can see that interest rates of emergent market economies is much higher than of advanced economies. That seems, this is very related to the fact of their currency has a low liquidity premium compared to the advanced economies currencies, mainly in the case of the United States. You have to compensate the low liquidity premium with high interest rates. This is one of the reasons. Please. And as I mentioned, we have two asymmetries: productive asymmetry and financial asymmetry. Productive asymmetry is very related to one of what we call, how Brebesch called it, the deterioration of the terms of trade between manufacturing goods producers and commodities goods producers. You know very well this. But also there is the important concept of structural heterogeneity that was developed by Aníbal Pinto, also former secretary of CEPAL, that shows that modern and high productivity sectors, export activities mainly, in Latin American countries, absorb a small proportion of works, while the rest of the economy, featured by low productivity sectors, absorb a much large proportion for works. So you have this sort of dual economy, with one part with high productivity and another part with low productivity. Structural heterogeneity is a characteristic of Latin American economies, while East Asian economies have a much more diversified productive structure with higher level of productive and sophistication. In particular, structural change has been a feature of East Asian economies during the catch-up period, while since the 90s, we have seen a premature disindustrialization in Latin American economies. So one of the points that I would like to point out is that we cannot consider emergent market economies as the same. There you have depends on the specialization of the productive structure, and also how these economies are integrated to the international financial structure. So we have, I will try to compare in my presentation these two sorts of the economy that is Latin American specialized in commodity exports, and on the other hand, East Asian economies that have a more diversified productive structure, and they export mainly manufacturing goods with high aggregate value. Please, Julio. Well, there is a very interesting recent paper of Accuse that shows that there is a connection between commodity booms and capital flows boom. In particular, peripheral commodity specialized economies in commodity and financial cycles tend to move together and reinforce each other. Commodity price and capital inflows have a strong influence to each other, according to Accuse. Rising international commodity prices stimulate capital inflows to emergent market economies, while increase in capital inflows tends to rise the demand for commodities and commodities price. And there is the opposite when you have a falling in the international price that stimulate capital inflows, that decline capital inflows, and so on, right? So you have these two cycles, commodity cycles and liquidity cycles are connected in the case of the commodity specialized economies. Please. Well, we just to show some, I'm using the economic complexity index that is a measure of the degree of complexity of each country that is in the website of Hausman and others that calculate this index. We can see very different degree of complexity between Latin America and the left and Asian economies on the right. As we can see, during the 60s and 70s, there is an increase in the case, in the index in Latin American countries, and stagnate or even decline, with exception of the Mexico, because of the maquiladoras, that is industrial oriented to United States markets, but in most cases, or stagnated since the 90s or declining in Latin America economies. In the case of Asian economies, it's completely different picture. That is, you have a gradual increase in the index in all the countries. In case of China, that is more recently, it's more since the half of the 80s that begin the gradual transition of the economy, and began the catching up process of China. So, but in all the countries, you have this clear trend of the increase in the complexity of the economy. Please, Julio. And also, when you have a look, it's also from the Hausman website, they calculate also the export components of each country. This case, 2019. I just select some countries that is for Latin America, Argentina, and Brazil. Argentina on the left, Brazil on the right, and we can see that clearly the specialization in the commodities. In case of the Argentina, more related to agricultural goods, mainly corn, soybeans, meat, and in case of Brazil, you have this mix between natural resources, as the case of petroleum, iron, but also agricultural goods. But in the Brazil is more more somehow, I would say, interesting case that there was a huge change in the composition of the export in the last 20 years. That you have the predominance 20 years ago, 15 years ago, the predominance of manufacturing goods, and since then you have a huge change in the export composition. Case of Brazil, that is what some specialists call reprimarization of the exports. Please. And when we have a look in the case of China and South Korea, we have a completely different picture. That this blue are manufacturing, blue. In the case of China, in the left, there is an enormous diversification of the exports, enormous diversification of export. And it's just the opposite of case of Brazil. That's if you have a look in the exports of the composition of exports of China 20 years ago, you will see the low aggregate value manufacturing goods, the prevalence, and nowadays you have different off-seam machine parts, integrated circuits, cars. You have a different products here nowadays, and of course the case of South Korea also integrated circuits, telephones, cars, vehicles, parts, and so on. So very much more diversified composition of export. Please, Julio. And of course there is difference when we look at the current account balance of payments of the two, the left Latin American, right Asian, some Asian economies, who have a very different picture. In the case of Latin American, mainly we can see during the second half of the 90s and 2000s, and then you have this boom of commodities. After that, we have a decline in this boom of commodities, and recently, it's not here in this figure, you have again some sort of commodities boom. So it's more. So first, we can see that in most cases they are negative current account balance. Mostly, and very volatile, very dependent of the commodities booms. But when you see the Asian economies current account, we can see that not only increased for most economies in the 80s and the 90s, and also that they are positive. More than 0% of GDP for all the economies, that is Singapore, Thailand, Korea, China, and Malaysia. So you have a very different picture in terms of the trade of the two regions. Please, Julio. And also, because of the more strong position in terms of current account balance of payment, Asia economies have much higher foreign reserve as percentage of GDP compared to Latin American economies. As we can see in this figure, Malaysia, the China, that is the green, South Korea, blue, clear blue, and so on. In the case of the Latin American, you have a much lesser ratio of foreign reserve as percentage of GDP, although after the 2000 there is some increase, most in case of Mexico and Brazil. Please. Well, let me focus to finish my presentation the financial asymmetry that one of more important economists that has, like structuralist economists that has studied this problem is José Ocampo, that was former General Secretary of CEPAL as well. And Ocampo showed there is not only this central periphery in terms of trade, but also there is this central periphery relationship also between the capital flows, financial issues. So, well, let me focus on the capital account shocks have assumed the dominant role as part of a broader context of international financial stability characterized by frequent financial and currency crises. In Ocampo words, the central economies, particularly the largest amongst them, are business cycle makers, while the development countries, the periphery, are business cycle takers. So there's difference in terms of policy space. This implies different degrees of policy autonomy, whereas the center has more policy autonomy and is thus policy making, the periphery is essentially policy taking. So there is an even relationship between center and periphery, not only in terms of trade, but also in terms of finance. And more important, financial asymmetry exacerbates an equal development process between center and the periphery. Please, Julio. And I will show, just to show some figures, final figures, is related to the capital flows that will begin to show the external liability of some selected countries of Latin America and East Asia, left Latin American, right East Asia. In terms of external liability, we can see, of course, in both cases, much more diversified composition of capital flows in terms of the external liabilities. But in case of Latin America, there is the predominance. First, other investment. Second, foreign direct investment. In case of the East Asia economies, we have clear, this is the orange, the predominance of FDI. That is and also there is another point that I would like to stress. Look, that's this is external liability over GDP, right? We are seeing that in case of Latin America is more than 8% of GDP of external liabilities. When you have a look in the Asian East Asia economy, we are seeing that is more than is between 50% and 40% and 50% of GDP. Much lesser dependence on capital flows. Asia vis-a-vis Latin America, right? Please, Julio. But now we are seeing the same picture, but in this case, it's net financial asset. Net financial assets means foreign assets less external liabilities. It is net financial. We can see that the only, in case of Latin American, mainly the only positive figure in terms of net financial assets are foreign reserves, foreign exchange reserve, that is this blue, dark blue here. that is the same more or less in the case of in the East Asia countries. But we can see two big differences between the two regions. The first is the fact that net financial assets balance, that is this green line, is negative in terms of GDP for Latin America. And since 2002, become positive for Asian economies. Why? Because of why this difference in terms of Asian economies? The difference is because of the reserve accumulation. Mainly the fact that Asian has a much lower external liabilities and much higher foreign reserves. This is explaining why it became positive in case of Asia. But in the case of Latin America, you have just the opposite, because external liabilities is much higher than external assets. Second is the fact that it's clear the much more dependence of Latin America to other investments. And the case of Asia is mostly FDI. That is, of course, is much more stable and benefits for growth than the other sort of capital flow. So you have this different picture. Please, Julio. And finally, this I took this table from another accused work, that we are including all the major emergent economy markets and all major advanced economies. It's just his estimatives about yields, returns, yields, and capital gains and loss of emergent economies and advanced economies. And we can see that yields are gross assets, yields on gross assets, the difference between gross assets and gross liabilities, and capital gains and loss result from change in asset price and exchange rates. Just to look, the more important on the right is you can see the total returns, that is the difference. The sum of the two other columns is we can see that we have, in case of the emergent markets, the difference of the total returns is very negative. In the period 2000 to 2006, less 5.3%. In the case of the advanced economies, you have a positive returns of 1.6%. So this suggests that you have a flux of return from the periphery to the advanced economy, from the periphery to the center economies in the connection of the international issues. Please. Just to conclude this, my presentation, first, productive and financial asymmetries are related to each other. They are two sides of the same coin. Emergent economies with low complexity productive structure, commodity exporters, as the Latin American ones, tends to be much more volatile economies. That is, more subject to the boom and bust of the commodity cycle and also of the liquidity cycle. And therefore, more financially subordinated than those emergent economies with much more complex productive structures and exporters of manufactured goods. The latter consisted of Asian economies with greater economic dynamism, tend to have current account surplus and high level of foreign reserves, and attract mainly foreign direct investments as the main foreign capital, which provides then a much more robust external position compared to Latin America. So just to finish, what I try to do, that you have these two asymmetries, productive and financial asymmetry, that they are connected. Second, that there is huge difference between the commodity exporter specialized in commodities as Latin America and much more diversified economies, particularly East Asian economies that are mainly manufacturing exporters. That's all. Thank you so much for your attention. And this is what the papers, there are a lot of, this is a lot of papers that I have written with Barbara Fritz and Daniela Prats. And also there is two recent papers. That one, this is the Metamorphosis of External Vulnerability from Original Sin to Original Sin with Barbara and Daniela, and also with, I wrote recently a paper with two PhD students of the Institute of Economics of Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. That is this paper, Financial Subordination of Peripheral Emergent Economies, a Keynesian Structuralist Approach. Okay, that's all.